Hello everybody, it's Peter with an I, Stewart. In the previous episode, Frank was driven crazy by the ringing of the phone in the locked upstairs apartment. The only way in was through the chimney. Nancy's plan for Frank to bungee jump down the chimney, crawl through the living room, and answer the phone. Chapter 2 continued. Diving through the blackness, Frank kept his eyes closed tight and his hands out in front of him, his fingers tensed tightly into talon-like claws. He would only have an instant to both impact the bottom, feel the shape of the flue mechanism, and hold on to it. Normally, such daring would take days, even weeks of sleepless nights to even prepare for, but Frank was driven past concern for his own safety by the howling devil phone. We've all come in contact with minions of the devil ring. Usually it comes the moment we get situated in the bathroom, and the telephone starts going off without anybody to answer it. Or when the call waiting beep chimes in when you're listening to a long list of directions from an automated operator.
Press 8 if you'd like to. Press 9. If you'd like to hear the incredibly long list of options again, press pound and stay on the line.
Sometimes the cuckoo or grandfather clocks join forces with the phone during the automated list of directions. We've all fell victim to the little annoying rings and minor inconveniences, but now Frank was going after the beast. He could hear the bell and hammer vibrate through the chimney walls as he made contact with a slat of metal. His palm hit it quite hard. His remaining downward inertia gave him an extra split second to grab onto the metal flue before the rubber cord sent him flying back up. His grip was compromised by the charcoal that had been caked on after years of use. Frank hurriedly felt around and discovered a flange to pull himself downward into the light below. The grill that held firewood was a welcome security. Holding on to that, he rested for a moment to gather his wits. The phone howled again, calling him to battle, urging him to climb forth. Frank's blackened fingers left prints on the chipped granite of the mantel. Mr. Humphrey would either have to clean those up or do some quick talking to explain to guests why it looked like someone was desperately struggling to crawl out of the fireplace. House guests always seem to notice things like that and, after such observations, sip their sherry slow. There was over an arm's length between the hearth and the couch. The pull of the bungee on his ankles was too great to climb the ground by grasping the shag of the carpet. He had to think quick, for if the fatigue of his grip didn't do him in, the ringing of that blasting phone would. Frank focused and found a solution spilled over with the other fire-poking utensils. Quickly, he grabbed up a rod with a dull fleur-de-lis barb on the end and hooked it around the leg of the sofa. Climbing horizontally against the elastic pull, Frank made his way to the couch. He was now halfway across the room. His mind was quickened by the struggle, enabling him to rapidly devise a scheme to cover the ground between the couch and the pantry, the phone's lair. He stabbed a spike of one candlestick into the floor to pull himself along the ground, to stab the other candlestick in to pull himself up for another stab. Frank could hear a twinge of fear in the ring of the phone. Coming to the surface of the hardened linoleum, the candle holders became virtually useless. The bearing wall of the pantry was only a coin's roll away, but against the tight pull of the bungee cord, this coin roll seemed like an incredible distance. Incredible, but not impossible. A wooden pedestal which held a fern soon became a rod to hook the corner of the drywall. As Frank climbed the spiral design of the pedestal, the bungee cord made high-pitched twanging noises as it stretched ever so tightly. Frank's sweaty hands made the glossy paint of the wall slippery. If, at any moment, he lost his grip, he would fly backwards across the room and be racked against the sharp rocks of the hearth before being peeled like a banana on the metal flue. He made a desperate launch for the counter. The phone was screaming so close now, it was deafening. Frank climbed the counter up to the sink where he took hold of the glassy ceramic basin. Successfully achieving that stride, he became overconfident and made a lunge for the receiver, and missed. He never let go of the sink, but the recoil weakened his arm severely. A drip of sweat had gotten in his eye, stinging and blurring his vision. He paused in desperation, quickly surmising how difficult it would be to abandon the mission, but the phone rang again. This filled him with the energy of vengeance. He climbed past the sink, farther up the lip of the Formica counter, and to the wall where the phone was stationed. He was there, with the phone next to his chest and at his mercy. Frank hesitated for a moment to savor his victory. He gathered himself to answer it casually in the middle of the next ring. He hesitated, waiting for the next ring. Frank's soul curdled with sour fear as the telephone sat silent. He quickly picked up the receiver. There was a flat tone, indicating that the caller had finally hung up. The world became silent, almost tranquil, and everything that mattered suddenly became as trivial as a maple leaf falling to the ground. It took less than 1/10 of a second for Frank's fingers to slip, for him to fly around the corner, across the room, and be sucked up through the chimney. Nancy and Joe hoisted him upward. When they finally pulled Frank out of the chimney, they found that he still had the phone receiver in his hand. Exhausted to the point of delirium, he put it up to his ear. "Hello?" he asked. The frayed cord trailed in the breeze. Nancy and Joe would have been really worried about them had they actually gotten a response. "Good job, Frank," said Joe. "Take a breather." Frank tried to look at who was speaking, but his blurry eyes couldn't focus. "He'll be okay," concluded Nancy. With that, Joe collected his bowl of cereal and joined her to leave Frank to rot for a while on the roof. The only thing Frank was aware of was the total fatigue of his body, which had now become a hollow shell, and the utter failure he had just endured, which now seemed like a dream within a dream. In the midst of his delirium, what Frank wasn't cognizant of was that he was beginning to roll. Entering the house again, Nancy and Joe didn't see the falling person behind them, whose thud was muffled by the closing of the door. Frank laid on the grass, looking up at the innocent sky of a brand new day. Drifting up into the atmosphere on the skirt of an angel, Frank was blessed with a shining idea. "You know, we should get a phone," he uttered to himself, pleased with his newfound inspiration. Yes, they would get a new phone, but first, Frank decided that in the meantime, he should concentrate on filling his collapsed lung with air.